Hello, everyone, and welcome to the First Page Critique panel at the 2025 Authortube Writing Conference. I'm Shannon, writing on the pen name of S.C. Huston as a fantasy romance author, and I'm the founder and conference chair of the Authortube Writing Conference. Excited for today's session. I think I say that on every stream. I'm excited for today's session. I gotta get a thesaurus. The session of this, the AWC for this, is the First Page Critique panel, a presentation designed to give honest feedback and its critique of anonymously submitted and randomly chosen first pieces. Pages. We had 24 submissions this year, but we could only choose to read a few aloud. All submissions were randomly chosen. We hope to cover at least 10 of them and maybe more if we can get to it. And before we dive in, I do want to take a moment to thank our sponsors. They specialize in, nope, I skipped down the words. Want to thank our sponsors who help make the Authortube Writing Conference possible. A big thank you to WTC Creatives. They are our supporting sponsor. They specialize in professional web design and management. And they're offering an exclusive 20% discount during the Authortube Writing Conference weekend. You can go ahead and book it, but you can use it within the next 6 months. It's still valid. And as for all attendees and speakers, you can find their offer at their special landing page, which is also linked in the video description. We'd also like to acknowledge our banner sponsor, Later Press, whose generous support is helping us bring more value to this year's conference. And Later Press is a publishing platform that allows indie authors to sell books and subscriptions directly to readers with no platform fees. And that's on direct sales and subscriptions. And then it's a powerful alternative for writers who want more control over how they share and monetize their work. And for today's session, I will be one of your moderators. Specifically, I have the role of displaying and scrolling through each piece of work read aloud because I really can't do two things at once. And then start the conversation at the end of reading. I'm joined by my partners and fellow conference chairs in the AWC. And we'll start with Devon.
Hey everyone, my name is Devon. I write fantasy and steampunk with snarky female leads, and I am the publicity chair for the Authortube Writing Conference. And today I'm also a moderator, but my role is a little different, where Kauffman and I will be reading these anonymous works out loud to our panel members and monitor for the hand raises.
And I am Kauffman, daily writing streamer over on the Right Now community and the recruitment chair of the AWC 2025. And I am so happy because even though Devon and I will be reading the submissions as moderators, which you guys know, we love reading stories, it's actually going to be our wonderful panel members who will be critiquing the works. The panel includes speakers from this year's conference who have experience in the writing and publishing world. Let's go ahead and bring on our panel members and have them introduce themselves.
DL.
That'd be me. Hi, everyone. I'm author DL Tillery, the Mistress of Horror, and I write dark fantasy, romance, and horror. I always call myself the Mistress of Horror because I'm married to all the other genres, but I am always the Mistress of Horror. You can find me on YouTube and all the other social medias where I talk about horror, my writing journey, and any and everything in between of that journey. Nice to see you all today.
I'm Natalie Locke, co-author of 2 flash fiction writing prompt books, 1,000 Words to Get Started and 1,000 Words to Ignite Romance. And I have written over 300 flash fiction. So starting a page is very embedded in me. Not to mention, like any author, I read and consume stories continuously. So I'm very excited to add more stories, even though it's just the first 250 words, to my repertoire.
And Lori.
Hi, my name is Lori Tennant, and I write paranormal romance under Willow Byrne, and I'm currently writing later in life travel romance. I was also an assistant editor at a literary magazine, and I love reading new authors. So,
Uh-oh, we just lost someone.
Yep.
It's all right. I'm sure she'll be back.
The horror realm consumed her back
Dun,
into
dun,
her.
Yeah, Natalie was just saying that the horror realm took you away.
Yeah, it happens.
All right. I'm really excited for this. I enjoyed reading every single one of these. So
Yeah, definitely.
I know someone made a comment about picking the favorite sessions, but I thought they were asking about the favorite story. And I'm like, who could pick one?
I know there's some really, really great stories this year, and I know we're so excited to be able to get into them. Now, I know we also had one of our fourth panel members who's unable to make it, but we have her notes, and we're definitely going to be able to include her feedback in this panel. And by the way, Danica Favorite is the community manager at Publish Drive, a multi-published hybrid author. Danica understands the many challenges faced by authors today, and she seeks to help them navigate those challenges, both in her role at Publish Drive and as an author. Her mission is to empower people to tell their stories because every story matters. Now, while unfortunately she couldn't join us today, her voice will be here in spirit, joining us along with our other three wonderful, wonderful judges here.
Yes, and thank you all so much for the wonderful introductions. And now we're going to talk about how the panel will work today, and our panel members have received the anonymous works ahead of time, so they're already prepared. However, Kauffman and I will take turns reading those works out loud for everyone to hear. So I'm super excited. I love reading stories out loud.
Awesome. And then while each work is read, panel members will raise their hand at the point that they would have stopped reading the work, if they would have stopped reading. For the audience participating in the chat, feel free to raise your hand so that our anonymous authors can get a feel for what the consensus might be.
Yeah. And we do like to work with a love notes and help notes model. So at the end of the reading, or if all panel members raise their hand, we'll stop the reading there. And they will raise their hand if they would have stopped reading, as Kauffman had said. They will have a chance to say one love note and one help note. And if they would have raised their hand, we'll ask for the help note first. Like, why would they have stopped at that point? And the horror realm is not giving her up. If they would not have stopped reading, we still asked if they could try to provide a help note. But I think what we were hearing backstage before we started was that some of these were so good they couldn't think of any help notes for a couple of these. So I'm like, well, try to come up with something, because and you could, I said you could say beforehand, I couldn't think of anything. But we do want to try and offer some helpful advice if it all helps anyone. And so I think I covered everything in that. Audience members, yep, please chime in. So I think I covered it all. I took your piece and you took my piece.
It's all good. We're going to hear some really great stories, and it's going to be very difficult for our judges to be able to tell where to stop. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm on number 2. Sorry, I gave away which one was number 2 already. All right, I think this starts with, it's a number 1. That is going to be Devon who's going to start. And Kauffman will monitor for hand raises.
All right. Number 1, these lovely poisons. How does one truly measure time? Is it measured in how much of it a person has? Is it measured in what they do with it? Or could it perhaps be measured in who they choose to spend that time with? Even now, people still debate over the true value of its measurement. Fortunately, I'm not actually a person. Well, not entirely. You see, for my whole life, I've been an umakade. While I look like a regular girl from the waist up, my lower half is entirely centipede. The only other indicators that I'm not exactly normal are my scarlet antennae and the mandibles just beneath my human jaw. I lived my whole life in these woods with my grandmother, or Grand Mukade as I call her. My mother was murdered by humans when I was very young, and so me and my grandmother had kept our distance from them ever since. That is until I met him. A young boy by the name of Paul, who I dared to open my heart to, the first real human I was able to connect with. He was the very first person who didn't treat me like some sort of monster despite my outward appearance. He showed me the same He showed the same love to me that I felt for him. Unfortunately, our love was never meant to last.
Nice. So Kauffman, anyone raise their hand?
No, I was looking for. I'm like, is it glitching? Am I like behind here? I was like, no. Yeah, no, that was great though.
Okay. Well, panel members, if you want to go ahead and give us your one help note and your one love note. It doesn't matter on the order.
Okay, I can go. Oh, you can go ahead, Natalie.
We're doing too nice. Okay, fine. I'll just dive in so we don't play the nice game. The first paragraph starting out made me think, I was like, is this nonfiction? It just had that nonfiction vibe because of the rhetorical questions, as if these were questions that were going to be answered through the work. So I thought my helpful note is start this with the line, fortunately, I'm not actually a person. Well, not entirely. That line would make me go, wait, what? And suck me into the story. And then the last note I have, I promise, sorry, is that so we have switched the order of grandmakade, then grandmother. So you say that in the woods with my grandmother, or grandmakade. Say in the woods with my grandmakade. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. My grandmother. Have the line I said is, have us dive into the world, not you working your story to fit into our world. Okay, now I'm done.
I have to agree with that. My help note was maybe use a little bit more showing than telling in the discovery of what the main character is, meaning not telling us, how the character is, a different type of being, but you can show it that way. The reader kind of discovers it when you're showing that type of instances. You don't have to tell. It's an option, obviously. You could tell it or show it, but sometimes showing the reader in that way can kind of be more, enthralling into the story. That's my own help note. And a love note. Are we giving love notes right away?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So a love note I love the uniqueness of the story and that it held my attention to want to know more, because obviously like the Grand Makade and then the centipede part for body, like that's going to grab me for sure because it's quite unique and different. So yeah, I definitely love.
Oh, we lost her again.
I think she loved it though.
That's okay. Can I start with the love note? Would that be okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. My love note is you have a strong title and a very cool character. And I agree about just starting with that line of dialogue. I think that would be a really great kind of like, wow, kind of hook. You'll pull a reader through your first couple pages with that, I think. Also, I think in my help note, something needs to be happening. And you can tell us about the body through her actions, because it would be a fantastic discovery. If she's doing something, then we can get a feel for this unusual body and world, and it will be more of a punch than just saying it.
That reminds me of how Janet was talking about it in World Anvil doing setting, but she's like, show us setting through what the character is seeing, doing, looking like, that kind of stuff in the world. Yeah, so it's perfect. All right, are we ready to move on to the next one? Okay. Number 2, The Witch Rider.
The Witch Rider. Lorna Blackwell was sitting in the expansive rolling hills and tall grass outside her village in the kingdom of Asteria. A book she's read so many times, the print is faded and the pages worn to a velvety feel. But it wasn't the book she was looking at. Lorna was watching with an awe-inspired look at the dragons and their riders flying in the skies above her. The kingdoms of Drugan was home to the dragon riders, and with the royal council uniting all 5 kingdoms of Draconia, it was no surprise that the powerful dragon riders and their home kingdom were the powerhouses of that council. While this was technically no kingdom that ruled over the rest, other religions naturally faded with the rise of the mother dragon and the dragon riders. But over 5 centuries ago, that changed. For families like the Blackwells, that meant practicing their religion in secret. Her parents and her sisters were avid followers of Hecate, the goddess of witchcraft. Lorna had studied the same spells and enchantments, but when she had completed the spell, calling out to her familiar on her 13th birthday, nothing came, unlike the rest of her family. She still hated the resentment she felt towards her twin sister, blaming Lila for her lack of magic. Not that Lorna dared ever speak the words aloud. Lorna knew it was crazy, but she felt like the magic that was supposed to be passed down to her was somehow given to her twin instead.
All right. Devon, did anyone raise their hand?
Yes, I saw DL raise her hand twice, and I saw Natalie raise her hand once.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start with who did it first?
DL.
All right. DL, go ahead and give us your reason why you would have stopped, and tell us where you stopped, where you would have stopped, and why you would have stopped there. And you can follow up with your love note.
Where I stopped really, I thought I missed my mark, but where I stopped was but over 5 centuries ago, right there. And I kind of felt that it was my help note for that particular reason was less telling and a little less info dump style at the opening, which kind of could make you like just lose the reader in that instance. So I kind of got like I would have probably stopped because I got a little, maybe because of the info dumping that it felt like it was. But that's about where I would have stopped, though I found the dragons interesting, which is in my love note. So that's my help note about a little less info dumping. So probably work on a little bit more showing to let the reader get the feel of it, and when you show, it gives you a little bit more insight and action into being a part of the scene, I believe. And then my love note for that, the dragons are always a plus, so don't lose the dragons. I did enjoy the details of them.
All right. We'll move on to Natalie, right? You were to raise your hand.
Yeah. So I raised my hands about uniting the 5 kingdoms of Draconia. At this point, we had 2D words that are made up.
Yeah.
Such, and that was like when we start having similar words so close together, I'm like, wait, who's what, huh? And I'm like, what's the master kingdom called, and then what's the sub kingdoms called? And I got lost. As someone even said in chat, and here's my love note, that first paragraph, I could smell that book. I could smell it. At first, I had this like vision of Sound of Music sitting on the hills and stuff, and then you threw in dragons. What's cool is that I think you could take those dragons, and here's my helpful note that could set up the rest of it, is she's watching the dragons. Are there different breeds from different regions that you could explain the regions? Are there armor or banners or colors that the riders are wearing that let you know which region they're from? So we could do some world building. Is there different flying styles? Is one style more endurance, and so they have a wide wingspan, like they could, like they're a goose and they travel north and south for the winter constantly or something? Or do we have like streamlines? So a little bit of like how you're training your dragon and how each dragon had this personality, had this goal based on the how they were built up. Or if all the dragons are the same, go with the colors that the regions have. Is there different flying styles and everything? Is there quick turns, or is there more like some people like to be higher up in the sky because they have tall mountains in their region, so that's what they're used to. So you could have some world building with through the eyes of our main character.
Okay, nice. And Laurie?
Okay, I feel like my help note is you've got 2 conflicting emotions here, and there's kind of 2 ways you could go. If you go deeper into her response to watching the dragons, longing, lost information about the dragons, then you center us on that her relationship to the dragons, and that would be cool. Or you could focus on the emotions that come up about her sister, which are also interesting and strong, which is resentment and anger toward her sister, and those emotions and how she feels cheated. Because that could also be a powerful way to start, but it'll minimize the dragons. but I would go one way or the other and go even deeper into either focus. The dragons are loved by everybody. So my love note is who doesn't like dragons? And you could totally start there and then build in the complication of the sister. Or you could start with her complicated situation with her sister, triggered by seeing the dragons. And then you have given us right at the jump this character's big lesson. To get past her resentment and blaming other people for her situation, she's going to have to overcome that probably to reach her goals. So you can set up that really fast, like this is where she's going to have to grow, which for some readers would be crack. So I would go one way or the other, toward dragon, toward what her area of growth will need to be.
Nice. Okay, so I did forget to read Danica's notes on the first one. I'll get to that one in just a second. I do want to add to this one first before we finish off with this piece. And Danica said, I would have stopped reading at the very first line. Help note, there's nothing to draw me into the action and it's all telling. And then the love note, this is a really interesting story idea, which I'm assuming is about someone who didn't get her dragon, and it is something I'd love to read. So, and then for the first one, which I forgot to read, this was number 1, these lovely poisons. I would have stopped at the first line and help note, this feels very slow and it's a lot of telling and doesn't draw me in. Love note, I'm in love with the concept of being half centipede. I'm dying to hear more about it.
Yep.
So, all righty. Move on to number 3. Pirate Love. Sorry.
So go ahead.
I was just reading the title. That's actually your job, so I don't know why I was taking it. Sorry.
Number 3, Pirate Luck. The manor was suffocatingly silent, not the soothing kind that promised safety and rest, but the oppressive hush where dust danced louder than voices and laughter hadn't warmed the walls in years. Jean's dolls, perched on the shelf, stared blankly, their painted eyes dulled by neglect. They hadn't blinked in months. Jean sat cross-legged on her frilly bed, twirling a half-finished vial of cracked china between her fingers. The potion's soft fizz was the only spark of life in the manor's yawning cold. Her mother had left again that morning for another urgent engagement. Her father, buried in his letters, hadn't flinched when Jean slipped a sugar cube laced with painted eyes into his tea. He never noticed. Again. The tutor hadn't shown up. Again. Even the servants had stopped calling her miss, their voices now tinged with pity. Oh, you're still here? Jean glanced at the row of velvet-dressed, button-eyed dolls stitched with gold thread. She whispered to them, asking what it felt like to be forgotten. They didn't answer. So she packed, not clothes, but tools. A belt of vials, 7 poisons, 4 antidotes, 1 mystery. Smudge goggles too big for her nose. A pouch of dried sea snake venom. A single red ribbon left behind by her sister when she'd moved away. She scrawled a final note for the dolls and left it on the shelf.
All right. What if anyone would have raised their hand, Kauffman?
Yes, Natalie raised her hand. I want to say about, I think, on paragraph, I think it was 3. It was on paragraph 3 or 4.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Allie.
So the reason I raised my hand is, first off, the first paragraph, holy moly, that first line too, like it got me. I would like to define the suffocating silence and because a lot of people like silence, and then to explain it further. So that aside, that love note aside, the part that got me, and it's just like these 2 sentences in this paragraph, it's about the half-filled vial of cracked china. So I'm thinking of like something little tiny. This is probably me just not either. I haven't been exposed to these items enough. And it's that, yep, cracked china between her fingers, the potion, soft fizz and spark. Like we mentioned her holding something and then she's writing a letter like that. Just those 2 sentences there just like drew me out, and I couldn't really picture her, what she was doing in her room. and again, it could be my exposure, or it could be that the later part was, it seemed jumpy instead of flowy, of when we have the father not notice, and then we had the tutor not showing up. Like it was a jump for me. We're talking about family, and then we're talking about others, and then we're talking about the servants and stuff. So it kind of jumped is the best way I can describe it. But I still love the first paragraph a lot.
I am. Lori?
Okay. I think it will move quicker if you have her packed and get her moving out the door faster. I would ditch the list except for the red ribbon and get your main character in motion. My love note is the doll blink line is butter. It's a good hook. It's intriguing. It gives the reader questions they will want answered. I would totally slip one of those little dolls in her pocket, because you just can't leave that behind. That is just, it's butter. Keep it. And I thought the fizzing vial is also a nice motion, sound, sensation. So you're a good writer. I just think this can move a little faster and you'll hook readers harder. Put a doll in the pocket.
DL?
My help note would be maybe the use of more senses in the opening around Gianna to get more of a feel of her personality. I think a lot of writers, we do forget about the four senses that could help tighten or strengthen a particular part, especially to get to know the character in that moment, especially since we're kind of like leading into who she is and her feelings. So those things would be expressed more in the senses. And then my love note would be, I love the check off list of items that Gianna took. That kind of made me smile because of the tick off of them, like the 7 poisons, the 4 antidotes, 1 mystery. I did like that play on that, so that's my love note for that one.
And so Danica wouldn't have stopped reading this one. And she said, I did want to keep reading, mostly to figure out what was going on with the story. Help note, give us more about what this story is about right away. And love note is, there are so many fascinating pieces to this. I'm curious about what the story is about and what's happening. So, all righty. Let me scroll down to the next one.
All right. Number 4, Patience and Surprise in a Forgotten Realm. Aaron slammed the tankards onto the wooden table. Amber liquid sloshed over the rims of the cups. The tangy, sweet liquid rolled over the edges of the table. Hey now, what in the rift? The 2 men scooted along the edge of their booth seat to avoid the dripping liquid. Aaron stepped back, careful to not let any splash on her threadbare cloak, lest she'd spend the evening cleaning the scarred leather armor she wore beneath the fabric. I guess they don't like sticky crotches. Who would have guessed? Startled and annoyed grumbles came from the 2 burly men. Their charming, seducing smiles faded. In its place, the expression of hardened men who knew how to fight. The furrowed brows and deeper reds of their faces told Aaron all she needs to know. No one likes their hunt interrupted. Aaron's hand hovered near her concealed dagger. She forced her lips flat, not wanting to show her excitement for a fight. If they tried a physical attack, she could handle them easy. The tavern was crowded, with low ceilings and low light. Trying to swing a sword in this place would hit more than just one target. And both the men wore swords and old leathers. But if one of them was a mage, she'd need to make quick work of them before they started casting. Though Aaron wasn't here for a fight, she was here for the woman who sat with them, cornered against the wall.
All right. Devon, would anyone raise their hand?
I did not see anyone raise their hand.
Okay. So we want to start with DL. You want to tell us your love note and help note?
Yes. My help note is the way the scene is written. I felt that like a bit of dialogue, of banter between the characters would have been a nice touch. Not needed, but a nice touch because of the little bit of dialogue taste we got. And then my love note would be interesting opening, enough to keep me reading. I definitely wanted to know more about the story.
All right. Natalie or Lori? Lori, okay. You're being nominated. Mute is on. Mute. No voice.
No, Natalie, you're still muted.
Sorry about that. I thought I clicked it. I feel like her actions make it look like she's totally trying to start a fight. So I don't know if you're trying to tell us she's an unreliable narrator or, but that didn't work for me. If she's doing it big to protect the woman, I want to know sooner. If she really does want to start a fight, that's interesting, and just go with it. Don't try and negate it. And my love note is it's interesting that a lone woman would brave a group of hardened soldiers. It's interesting. What's it?
So for me on this one, I got a little lost. Like when I saw two men scooted, I thought Aaron was one of the two men. But if you said the two men out at the booth across her, then it would understood. Also, we have we're starting with an action, and in the middle of an action, if she slammed it down, I want to know what made her slam it down. Were they coming onto her, or were they being rude to someone else or something? What made her kind of make this grand gesture? But the thing I loved is that you created the slang of what in the rift, and just immediately you kind of know this is another world. And I love when there's new slang and idioms and such. But my one point to help make this better. So when she's talking about, I can't swing my sword around, bring up the woman in the corner then. Because at that point, it could just be some woman in the corner. But then we give her importance with that last line. And that last line, that it's a cliffhanger. Like, give me more.
Danica actually agreed with you on that one. Love note, great hook at the end. I want to read more. And then the help note is you could condense a lot of this first page and get to that last line faster, which is the real hook.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Okay, so I do not have the right one. This is not the right one. No, that's not the right one.
No, that's the right one.
Oh, it is. Okay. Are you sure? Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it's the right one.
I remember.
Okay. If you guys didn't know, I messed up the packet. I duplicated 2 of the stories, and so for number 5, yeah, this is the right one because I see Danica's notes. Danica did not get the updated story, so we don't have notes on this one from her. I apologize to the author of this one.
All right. Number 5, when the portals open. Sage stared at the scene before her and wondered how it was possible. In her 25 years, she had been on many adventures. She'd sailed the 7 seas with pirates, fought in Fey wars, learned alongside Greek gods, ridden dragons, swam with mermaids, met vampires and werewolves, gone to wizarding school, and fallen in love many times. Of course, those adventures were all in the books she read. Sage was a normal woman living a normal life. Now there was a hole in her roof, and a dragon in her living room, and a handsome, bleeding man laying on its back. She went through everything that happened before this moment. She had poured herself a glass of wine before going to her room to lie down and read. She must have fallen asleep, and the mix of wine and exhaustion was causing her to have a vivid dream. That was it. It was a crazy dream her subconscious worked up for her to be able to live in one of her stories. Sage, momentarily paralyzed with fear and confusion, was standing there with her mouth agape when the man and the dragon started stirring. The dragon was the first to wake up and see her. It looked around and seemed just as surprised as Sage before nudging the man with his nose. He woke and slowly moved down off the dragon's tail, where he landed and took in the house around him.
We've got dragons this year, which is awesome. All right, Kauffman, would anyone have raised their hand?
No, it's probably because they put a dragon on it.
All right. Well, do we want to start with
It's a
Lori?
small price to pay.
Yeah, there you go. We start with Lori help note and love note.
Sure, I'm going to start with my love note first. I really like the premise and the mayhem a lot. I think it's fun. And my help note is lean into the chaos. I think a good opening line would be, Sage was a normal woman living a normal life. If you start there, like dot, 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 and then just drop us right into your main character's experience of a portal opening in her everyday living room, and just make it chaos. Let us experience it with her. And I think the readers will just lose their minds.
All right, yeah. DL?
Actually, I agree with that about the first line. My help note was maybe change the opening line. I think it could be reworked a bit just to grab the reader immediately because Sage stared at the scene before her and wondered how it was possible. I don't think we need to wonder how it's possible. I think we need to get right into that, and then because once you get to mentioning vampires and Greek gods and stuff, you got the people, but you got to get that first line to grab them so you can get to that crazy stuff going on there. And then the love note is I love the build of for the story, because once you get down to vampires and mermaids, like, who don't want to read that? Like, what's happening in this place? Like, I need to know. So yeah, that's my love note.
This is one of those stories where there's very minimal that needs to be changed. I do agree that the first line could change, and what I would do is move the hole in the ceiling to the first line. And it's because I see it as from a character stance of, she's going, I have seen a lot of things in my life, but this takes the cake. And so what we need her to do is that first line needs to set up of like, a hole in the ceiling would be normal to anyone else, but today for me, this is odd. Here's my resume of the stuff I've seen. And then go into, and now I got a dragon in my living room and a bleeding, kind of handsome guy on his back. You know, and so that, like, if you have hole in the ceiling that the rest of the world, we would think that is mundane. And she should think it's mundane based on that resume. I think that would help this story just be a little oomph.
And I think this is what writer Sam Wicker said. How big is the room? There's plenty of room that she was not basically crushed by them when they fell through. Because we do, I think, tend to think of dragons as being big. So, and DL's back.
I know I keep playing pop in and out. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We'll bring you back on. So my notes are the same as Natalie's. All right, let's go into the next one.
Echoes of sacrifice. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I don't want to die. The words rang through his mind on repeat as he sat silently, hoping the beast would not find him. As he peered out from his hiding spot, he caught a glimpse of the massive creature prowling nearby. It was larger than any feline he had ever seen, with pitch black fur that seemed to absorb all the surrounding moonlight. As if the size wasn't enough, shadowy tendrils appeared to wrap and crawl over its body, giving it an otherworldly appearance. Just as it neared his position, the creature's head shot up in alert. Its green eyes glinted in the moonlight before it turned and disappeared into the thick underbrush on the opposite side of the clearing. That fucking creature is a nightmare beast. I can't fight a monster like that with only a basic knife. I never should have agreed to come to the godforsaken forest, because he understood these creatures came with a great sense of smell. He wanted to put as much distance between him and the beast as possible. Time was not on his side. He needed to act fast. The sound of a nearby stream beckoned to him, and he followed it until he reached its banks. He rolled up his trouser legs and stepped into the cool water, carefully navigating across the slippery rocks to the other side. Once there, he walked down the stream's bank for about 50 or so meters before he re-entered the water and waded back up the stream to the point he initially entered.
All right, would anyone have raised their hand? Or anyone do raise their hand?
I did not see anyone raise their hand.
Okay, we'll start with Natalie this time. If you want to give us your love note and help note.
So my love note, the anticipation, the anxiety. I need to go take my meds. You definitely built it up here. I can imagine that creature. You did great with the description. The part that I found most jarring was we have a first person opening line and then the rest is third person. And I'm sure if it was italicized, because I know fonts and stuff changed a little bit with this setup, it probably would be less jarring. But for me, I had emotion, first person emotion, and then I went back to third person. And then you also had filler words later on, such as he understood the beast's smell. Just show him acting already, knowing that the beast has a great sense of smell, and we would, if we were a tag along crew with this guy, we would probably be watching him and going, oh, we should get in the water because that's going to mask the smell. Like, just by his actions, we would kind of figure it out. But I got emotions from it for sure. Like hopefully if you wanted me to question my anxiety level of meds, yep, you did well.
All right. DL?
From the Mistress of Horror here. I'm going to say definitely the build up of the beast was great. I would, of course, agree with Natalie on this one. The first person start, I would say you should have stuck to that, only because of the description of the beast, and then jumping to third kind of would throw the reader off and pull them out. And then there was a slight jump back into first on his thinking. So I would suggest first person for this, since you start that way. And actually that line about the beast, about, how he shouldn't have came out or how he sees it, it would be from his own words and perspective, which would build the fear in the reader along with the character. And horror.
Oh.
Yeah, first person would get us much more invested.
Like the beast got me. But the horror should be built from first in this instance. It doesn't always have to be third, definitely could work. But from the story, I definitely would go with first. That would be my help note. But it's very gripping and very good. My love note is I love the opening, and I don't want a die chant. Definitely does it. Like, there's no way around that. Like, that right there is going to grip people. So let me be quiet before it bumps me out again.
I think we're all in agreement. Either take the thoughts to italics so that we know their thoughts, or just jump to first person. I think this would probably be pretty well suited to first person if you like writing that way. And my love note is you have a strong voice. Like, I think that if I read something else by you, I would probably recognize it was you. And that's a gift. So that's my love note. You have a strong, distinct writing voice.
So what Danica said was, I would keep reading this, and it looks like there's some POV mix-up, so it'd be help to clear that up. And I think that could be just the translation from inputting it into Google Forms and me putting it into a document. So it's possible it was italicized, but I don't know if that would have cleared it up. If it would, then that'd be great. Less detail, more action would make this story better. And then love note, great way to start a story in the middle of action. You've got me curious about this monster and why he's trying to kill it. So, alrighty, now we'll go to
There's a comment that I think we should address.
Where? Which one?
So they said, does using the F word mean it cannot be a YA title?
From my experience. The next one. So I have a girlfriend who publishes in YA, and she said you can do anything basically in YA that you can do in adult novels. There's very few things, so you can cuss, you can have things like that. It's just coming from the perspective of someone younger who's going through these things, and not from necessarily an adult perspective. I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like I didn't make no sense, but
no, it made sense. Well, for example, my kid's 14. I know she cusses. She doesn't cuss to me, but I know she does.
Anyone else want to weigh in on this one?
I think with cussing and language like that, I think you absolutely have to use intentionality with it. And there's definitely times where you can emphasize it. I think I challenge in this specific section if the use of the F word in that sentence is absolutely necessary. because you want to elevate the text. And I think in that moment, the focus is more on how they're responding to the nightmare beast. And we've already gotten the sense that, oh no, something crazy tentacle shadow creatures about to kill them. So I would think in that moment, I don't know if it would be necessary, but there are definitely times where it could elevate the text.
Well, see, and I think I'm a little bit different on that because I don't personally cuss too much in my work. It's just not something I really like to write. But I feel like the cussing, and maybe Lori, because you talked about voice, I feel like it added to the voice of the author.
I agree with
Definitely.
that.
I agree as well.
I do think probably in a final edit, there's always the option in this kind of alternate universe, you could make your own curse word too. That could have a similar feel or punch, especially with repetition. But the language didn't bother me, but it does. It's definitely a word from our world. But I agree with you. I think it added to the voice.
Yeah.
And Eva dropped this note about I like cursing in books. It's funny. I don't really curse in my books, but my current work in progress, which I have 3 what I call my Omega readers, they're reading my book because they want to read what I'm writing, even though I'm not done with the book yet. And I apologize in one section because I was like, I'm sorry, these characters cuss. I know I don't ever cuss, but they've been cussing in my head for 2 years, so they're coming out on the page. And and one of my readers said, yeah, I really don't like the cussing. And so there's definitely a wide range of readers out there of what you're going to find with that and their preferences. So, lost the L again. I think the other 2 that they said they were fine with it, but
We ready for number 7 now?
yeah, let's do it.
All right.
I secretly want to get through all the stories,
Okay.
which I guess is not so secret now. So
Number 7, Alien Souls, a sci-fi reimagining of The Little Mermaid. It was another cloudy night in Boston, 2114. The streets were crowded as citizens of all types made their way along, simply enjoying the nightlife. Humans, cyborgs, even the exotic pets they owned, from cheetahs to wolves, made for quite the colorful menagerie. Teens sped through the crowds on their hoverboards. Not those poor excuses for hoverboards from a century earlier that were merely segways without handlebars. I'm talking about the genuine model that Back to the Future predicted many years prior. Amongst the chaotic foot traffic, one particular duo shifted their way along, trying their best to blend in. One of them, a male in his early 20s, sported a patchy jacket and 2 robotic leg implants, whirring with each heavy step he took. The other, a female in her late teens, wore a skin-tight nanite weave top that accentuated her generous figure and leggings, along with fingerless leather gloves. She carried a large metal suitcase. They had been given specific instructions from the man who hired them. Break into the Boston Historical Museum of Antiquities and follow his directions. The reward he'd promised, both of them, was quite charitable, and neither wanted to disappoint him. Not after what happened to the last guy who disappointed him. Hustling along with the rest of the crowd to avoid attracting any unwanted attention, they kept their eyes peeled for their destination, scanning their surroundings relentlessly all the while. After several minutes of walking, they spotted their target.
All right. Would anybody have raised their hand, Kauffman?
Yes, we got one from Natalie.
Okay, Natalie, go ahead and tell us where you would have stopped and why.
Would have stopped when we're describing the teen that is walking with the guy that's in his 20s. We label him as in his 20s, and we label her as a late teen. Late teen can be anywhere from, if we're talking about normal math, 15 to 19. If we're talking about, what's it called? When you round up and everything, that would be late, is what I would consider. That in our world is a rough age in the sense of sexualizing, and we're talking about curves. So I think a way to fix this and everything. Now, obviously, there's been books that deal with, hey, in this culture, in this world, children can handle this and stuff, but they weren't objectifying them. And I'm just going to call it that just because it's easier to call it that. But I realize we're actually getting a lot of world building when we're talking about a nanite weaved top. Like, we are getting so much world building. What I think would have helped here is that when we talk about the teens on the hoverboards, which I love the Back to the Future line, give me some pop culture references, we're for it. When we talk about the hoverboards, maybe those teens are school age and they're rushing to their classes. This girl has graduated from the hoverboard generation. And so that way we're saying she's not school age anymore, but yet we are still showing that she is young. If we had something like that, I think it would make me a little more apt to read. And by the way, I've read all of these all the way through. The only reason my stopping point is my, like, I need to reread this sentence. Did I just read something? That's what it comes to me when I stop. It's more of I got hiccuped about something. So that's my 2 cents. But what I love here is you had me at heist. Give me a good heist story. I just rewatched the entire Oceans 11, 12, and 13. Like, okay, like, I'm ready.
All right, Lori.
Right now, the story reads like the reader is floating above what's happening. And I think we need to be dropped into the crowd. Like, we're walking with them, like we're either behind them or beside them or something. So we see from a certain closer vantage point or from the shoulder of one of the characters. Right now, we're floating above, and that just isn't as, it doesn't pull the reader in as strongly. Get closer. And I think some of the details are great. And the idea is interesting. A sci-fi mermaid that's cool.
Yep.
Get close.
DL?
You got, to me, like, I wouldn't have stopped reading because, I mean, you come at me with like Alien Souls and sci-fi reimagined Little Mermaid, I'm going to have to see what's happening. You know what I mean? But perhaps the opening lines could be more gripping, because when I hear sci-fi reimagined Little Mermaid, I'm expecting a strong start. And when you say Boston 2114, I'm like, that's not it. So I wouldn't have stopped reading because you pulled me in with that, saying all that, you know? So I would probably maybe rework the opening to grab people with that, with which you've bought us to. You got to deliver on some sci-fi Little Mermaid. I'm just saying. You asked for that. And the love note I have, the story was interesting for sure. I felt I would soon be led to more interesting details to see the plot come to life. So you definitely hold people with that. But that opening line has to be something stronger. I like details, but then you definitely got to go into something that's going to grip and hold them to get to the reimagining of the Little Mermaid in sci-fi. Like, you asking for like people to be like coming at you, like you went in, let's go, you know. But I'm definitely intrigued. 100.
And Danica said, I keep reading. Help note, too much detail that takes away from the story. Love note, I'm very intrigued to see what they're going to steal. So I think she liked the heist part too. So, yeah. All right, we get to the next one.
Thorned Rose. The moon hung high, bathing the darkened forest in silver light. Shadows twisted among gnarled trees, their leaves shimmering like scattered stars. In this eerie, enchanted wood stood a forgotten tower, half swallowed by tangled vines and ancient oaks. Its weathered stones, draped in creeping ivy, loomed forebodingly. Locals whispered of a curse, claiming unearthly howls echoed from the tower on moonlit nights. Cade, a seasoned thief, glided through the trees like a shadow. His footsteps were silent, each movement precise from years of navigating treacherous terrain. No crumbling tower in a cursed forest would outwit him. His sharp green eyes gleamed with resolve as he reached the entrance, a massive wooden door, reinforced with iron, locked naturally, but no match for his skill. Easy pickings, he muttered, drawing a set of slender lockpicks from his belt. His fingers danced with practice ease, coaxing a soft click from the lock. The door groaned open, releasing a wave of stale air that sent a chill down his spine. as he stepped into the darkness.
All right. Would anyone raise their hand?
I did not see anyone raise their hand.
Oh, okay. Guy is a great narrator. There you go. You got some props. Let's start with DL this time then. Love note, help note.
My help note would be I enjoyed the opening. Only help note I could think of is you could add some of the 4 senses to the scene because the prose and the build is good. I'm not gonna lie. And my love note was I love the writing style and the prose. Like, definitely got that. Definitely. I'm all about that. So kudos to you for that.
All right. Natalie?
All right. Love note, I like the build up. I was sucked in the world. I'm there with him. I am picking the lock. Like, I'm waiting for that little click and feel and stuff. So I was definitely sucked in. I only had like 2 help notes, I guess. My suggestion, make the second line the first. Shadows twisting among gnarled trees, their leaves shimmering like scattered stars. And you could add a comma through the silver light or through slivers of moonlight or something like that. Like, you could add that in, just cut that first line, because to me, the second line is stronger in showing this really like enchanted forest, especially because we say enchanted wood right after that. Second area was, hold on. Oh, we kind of have an echo where we're talking about the shadows in the gnarled trees. And then later we got Cade, a seasoned thief, gilded through the trees like a shadow. Just say he gilded through the gnarled shadows. Like, you could have it where he's using them to his advantage instead of saying he's like a shadow. But those are my only 2 help points. As you can tell, it's very minute, and I did not raise my hand. So trust me, I'm captivated. What is he going to do?
So I'm going to jump in here, Lori, with Danica's note, because it kind of is the opposite of what Natalie said. So she actually highlighted that second sentence, shadows twisted among gnarled trees, their leaves shimmering. This is where she would have stopped reading. And what she said for help note, start in the action, not with description. Love note, the seasoned thief and curse sound intriguing. Would love to see more. So a little bit I think it might be just more of a reader preference of how you'd like to start a story, to be honest. So yeah. All right, Lori.
I'm going to back that up, actually, because my help note is start with easy pickings. And then maybe put in the moon hung high and some of the, he's right outside this wooden door, but behind him is the woods and the moon. And I think that if you start with him crouched right there, it's just stronger. And I would cut the K to seasoned thief, because that pushes us far away from experiencing the story with your character. But I love that you use multiple senses. You describe things beautifully, and you do bring the reader into your story. I thought it was a nice job.
Yeah. All right, next one.
Stormforged. Prologue. She was fucked, but at least she was going to die soon. Alyssa had finally convinced her parents that she was old enough to go on a supply run to the neighboring village alone. She was 15. She was well and truly old enough to make the journey when her best friend had been making similar trips alone since she was 12. She should have realized something was wrong when she didn't see anyone else on the road. Should have turned back when she saw the gray storm clouds in the distance. But she had been daydreaming, so deep in her head that she didn't notice any of the things that everyone in Nyla knew to keep their eye out for. It wasn't until she reached the town of Avilion that Alyssa realized her life was forfeit. It was a ghost town, and she knew she wouldn't make it, even on horseback, before the storm hit. And it wasn't just any storm. It was a celestial storm, a celestrum. Survive the celestrum, and you wake up stormforged, blessed with magic. The downside is that any stormforged is automatically conscripted to the army. Those young enough are put into schools for additional training. And the biggest downside, human bodies were not intended to contain the power of the celestials who created the world. The more a stormforged used their magic, the more they fractured. Fracturing was a known side effect, but the true depths of what it does to a person is a closely guarded secret.
Kauffman, anyone want to raise their hand?
I don't think so. I also got really into the text that time as well.
Nice. All right. Let's start with Lori this time.
Okay, my help note is if she didn't see these things along the way, how would she know them now? I would restructure that a little bit. So maybe she sees something that triggers her to realize these little things she's been ignoring and hadn't put together. But it doesn't make sense to me for her not to have noticed them. And then suddenly the narrator did. I'd rather stay right with the character. I love the language you're starting with this. The Celestrum, Stormforge, the cost to magic, fracturing, conscription, so you would have to use the gift, are all super cool. You're introducing us to a very complex and intriguing system here, and I'm all about it. There is, I start the story with her experience of becoming Stormforged, maybe. I think that would be hella exciting and help us know even more. It's not on the page yet, but I think to put us in that moment where she experiences it and feels some kind of shift would just punch the reader in the face and be fantastic. But it's a very cool idea, and I think this kind of idea set that you're showing us in this tiny little bit has the scope where you could build a whole series from these kinds of ideas. So really good ideas, and good job.
All right, DL?
I definitely would kept reading. I think for my hope, no, I said, it says prologue, but not sure that was needed. And if it is needed, it would be opportunity to do some of the suggestions that Lori mentioned, where you could introduce some of the things she would have already possibly seen in the prologue. And then that's how you tie in a prologue into the story to make it relevant, because you don't want to have a prologue that is not relevant if you're going to bother with a prologue. And it can be very short. Prologues can be a page, it could be a half a page, just to introduce those things that she could have seen before and then tied them into now the scene that she's Stormforged and things like that. Because of that, prologue will be introduced into the story. As long as you link it, you're good with a prologue. So that's my help note. But of course, prologues are choice or not choice. You may not even need that at the beginning of that story because it is quite good. My love note is gripping opening, had me hooked and helped me so I can read more, because that Stormforge magic building, we got to know what happens with that. So good job.
All right, Natalie?
I thought that first line was very captivating. I have a manuscript of a 70K words where my first line involves an expletive. So I said great first line. There's just little tiny things like a developmental edit help note would be, what was so captivating? Like, what are we trying to convey with this character? Were they daydreaming? Are they just a daydreamer and oblivious to situational awareness? Or do they have a lot of tribulations that they're going through? Are they worried about their family and that's why they wanted to step up and do this alone to help the family? Or are they a dreamer? Is this actually not something they want to do, but they have this dream goal of something, and that's what had her preoccupied? Because right now she just seems like really bad situational awareness and that she could be killed off easily and kind of had it coming. But I'm assuming we want to make her appear stronger than that. But I still I'm interested to see where it's going to go, because technically we start with an action of she's in danger and she's going to die soon. And I'm like, okay, how does she get there? And so I know eventually that's coming. And that's why I'm still reading by this point. And there's just really tiny changes after that I would suggest.
All right. And from Danica, I kept reading. Help note, the story has a lot of telling and slows the pace. Love note, I'm very curious about the Stormforge thing. And I love the opening line. I think it's interesting that we're talking about, and I think that Leon is just, why somebody choose a curse in their opening paragraphs. I don't know it seems to like add to the voice a bit. I see it a lot. It's not something I do because I just don't really cuss, but I do see it used quite a bit.
I mean, you come at us like that, we're like, whoa, what's going on here? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
I do think that this is a better intentional use of cussing in the beginning because it does set the tone very early on.
It's like when your friend calls you and says, "Hey, what's up?" versus, "Hey, and you go, "Oh, honey, what happened?" Like
Oh,
you're
my goodness, right.
immediately
Yeah.
See?
drawn in when your friend calls you and says that.
The
You're like,
drama.
All right, let's go on to the next one.
Little planets. Each blue leaf channels the morning sun's light into a pleasing purple that shatters itself along the crystalline water of Sonterra's abyssal swamps. Luma glares in the sky above, wide and bright with a vermilion haze that has always felt foreboding. Pia's hands are trembling and chill. They pat down the damp sweat along her calves so that the biocon mecha is clean while she wears it for the next few hours. Her mind works fast to pull her from her task, but her body complies with the orders she repeated herself last night. She slides the interior fabric up her leg and then pulls the locking joints of the exoskeleton in place. Pia, the hollow brick is ready to relay data from your suit. Please don't make me restart the program again. DeLeo stands 4 foot and pissed. His arms are crossed and his right leg is cocked. She waves her hand dismissively in his direction and turns back to her suit. It's now above her thighs. As a precaution, she bends and lifts both legs to ensure the machine joints are adequately connected to her nerves and that there are no delays in the sensors. She wears nothing but underwear beneath to allow her skin to breathe. In reality, it is to ensure that the machine can perform medical aid in case of an emergency. But that is not the part of her job she likes to acknowledge before going on an excavation.
All right. Would anyone have raised their hand? I don't know. Did DL, you had your hand raised? Okay.
Yes,
Anybody else?
DL had her hand raised.
Okay. So if you want to tell us where you would have stopped and why, and then I'll love note.
I stopped at the exoskeleton in place. My help note is a better balance of show versus tell for the opening to grab and hold the tension. I just became kind of like, it kind of let me go, and I just I was losing interest slowly. I think the over level of details too early because I don't know the character yet. I think it was too much of telling for that so early. And then my love note is the details about the suit was well done though, and quite interesting. It's just the placement of when that was being done was drawing me out. So that's what I have.
So Danica also kind of, I think on both points, agreed with you. Oh, well, she left out. But so Danica says she stopped reading in that first paragraph. The story has a lot of telling and slows the pace. Well, let me add DL back. Okay. A lot of telling and it slows the pace. The tense of story doesn't work for me and it has me wondering what's going on. Love note, very curious. The biomech thing seems interesting. Curious how it works. And it's a really interesting setting. All right, Natalie?
So for me, I love that last paragraph. That was excellent showing versus telling with how she's maneuvering in the suit and stuff. Before that, we were kind of getting more telling about like trying to pull from her her mind so fast, pull from her task. Her body complies with the order she repeated. It just something about the fabric up on her leg, and I couldn't really picture it, but everything in the last paragraph I was there. I had like mechanical legs and was trying to keep them from breaking down on me.
Would you say the story would be better if it started there, somewhere around that point then?
No, because it's you wanted to I think having Pia I wanted to know Pia first. I think knowing Pia first before that last paragraph is key. So otherwise you don't have this person. I like to know her personality. So she having her hands tremble, and I would say chilled instead of chill, because the chill by itself is kind of mellow, whereas chilled is cold and freezing. And even though it's a past tense, in this case, it makes sense. Trust me, it's more like a noun. At least in my mind. Now, obviously, I'm just one writer, and we've established everyone has different ideas. I will say also, at first, I thought Luma was the main character. So when I got to the Pia paragraph, I was like, who's this? But Luma glares in the sky, not at the sky. So it was an interesting little hiccup on my part there. But still, I became a cyborg for this story, and I'm here for it.
All right, Lori.
Okay, I think the notes about tense are interesting. I think if this writer's never looked at what it means to do close third, they might find that interesting. It's basically you are mostly from one person's point of view, but you're still in third. I would say start the story from your first line of dialogue. I think from that line forward, it gets super interesting and the pacing's good. If you want to keep the stuff before, I would recommend you consider, you've got the line, her mind works fast. You don't need to tell us that. You can adjust your sentence length and how quickly you're moving us through her experience to make it feel like this is her fast experience of something. And it'll be more effective and we'll feel it. I think it's a really good title. I like little planets, and I'm curious about what makes excavations dangerous and different. And I think the tech details are really interesting. I think this would be a fun book to read.
Thanks. All right, we'll go on to the next one.
The Arrival. The bubble train hovered along the barely there trail, Madden's soft whistling propelling the vehicle forward. The trip was routine, back and forth between the safe cities with trading goods. He was almost there. He upped the tempo of his whistling, and the bubble train accelerated. His destination was one of the newest safe zone bubble towns. The fog was thick. He expected the gate to come open soon, but strange shadows appeared out of the fog instead. Had they changed the town since last time he had been here? "Hello," he called. Only his echo answered. And as he advanced out of the fog, a horrific sight greeted him and stunned him to silence. The train slowed to a stop. Pieces of rubble, buildings, and other unidentified things that he would rather not think about, things that would forever haunt him, jutted out of the fog. Giant stone spikes, like the stone sea urchin extending from the center of what had been a vibrant city. His hand shook. He struggled to drag in a breath. The gate, the wall, and the dome, all gone. Of the buildings, only rubble remained. Of the people, Madden retched over the side of the train's cabin. What happened? This had to have been a wild magic burst, but cities were always built on zones where the magic couldn't go wild. It was supposed to be safe. How could this happen? Would this happen again? Madden, shocked and numb, turned his train around. The cities had to be warned.
All right, Kauffman, would anyone have raised their hand?
No, there are no hand raises.
All right, and we will start with Lori, help note and love note.
Okay, my help notes are check your tenses and stay consistent. As a reader, I want to experience his shock. You're doing a great thing with starting us in this little window of interesting world where he's whistling and he's moving a train, and then all of a sudden, poop hits the fan. I want to feel that shift in your character. And you can do that again by considering pacing in your sentences and start hitting us with smells and sights and the shock and fear he feels in his body. Let us experience with him. Does his whistling stop? And how does the change in how he's whistling affect the forward motion of the bubble vehicle? I want to know all of that. And the love note is, I want to know all of that. You drop the reader right into something interesting happening. Whistling, propelling a vehicle is a great introduction to your world having magic. And it's very nice. I like this one. I
forgot the last order I went in, so I might be going the same exact order this time. But DL, let's do you while you're here.
Yeah, right. My help note was the show what is horrific, show what is would forever haunt him. When you say he saw something horrific, that means nothing to us. It would only mean something to him. And if you aren't going to give us this, even though you're trying to be mysterious, there are different ways to be mysterious. And just using the word horrific doesn't tell us enough. So I would revisit that and try to at least give us a little bit of something to make us want to see what other terrible things did he experience in that moment. And then my love note would be the interest and intrigue was well introduced. So we definitely want to know about these bubble cities and what he has to go report. But I would definitely revisit the beginning of that and try to work in more showing. I hate to use that word constantly, but if you show what the character feels, you can even go into his emotional state, widening of eyes, whatever these tiny little tidbits of an expression of what you would yourself feel if you saw something that you deem horrific. That would at least give us that. If you want to stay completely mysterious, you need to give us emotions, his personality, and when he's afraid. So that's my help note.
Awesome, thank you.
For me, I loved the building, the world physics, you created something. Now I will say with bubbles, of course, I'm thinking of Wizard of Oz a little bit. However, what I also thought of is with this is just how unique it is of this like transportation system. And I really enjoyed the physics of that. And you brought us into the world, and then you forgot about the physics. You stopped and you focused on him talking. I was like, well, what happens to the bubble when he stops whistling? Does it glide to a stop, or does he have to do 3 quick whistles to make an emergency stop? Then he throws up on the side. And I'm like, is the bubble still intact? Like, is he heaving inside his bubble so it's around him, or is it actually going away from him and stuff? And so I just I feel like the physics were forgotten about. And so that's like my helpful note of just expanding around it more, especially because you went so in depth before that I'm like, well, it's controlled by whistles. So if he's talking, is it still moving or did it stop type thing? Things like that. Other than that, I agree with what my cohort said as well.
I think Danica liked this one because in most of her notes, she's like, I would stop here. I would keep reading. And this one's, she said, I kept reading and would keep reading. So it's a little longer than what she's normally put in her other notes here. Help note, the first lines were really confusing. Took me a minute to figure out that Madden was the protagonist, but love note, love the ending line. I love the concept of a disappearing city. So, all right.
Forest fire. Quickly, follow the trail. A couple in their mid-30s ran through a thickly shaded forest, the male clutching their 6-year-old daughter tight against his chest as he led the way. The path before them, a trail of bioluminescent mushrooms glowing a haunting green, provided them with just enough light to see ahead. The little girl's eyes were dilated, in terror, even within the embrace of her father. A quick flash from a nearby mushroom put her slit pupils on full display. Mommy? Daddy? What's happening? Where are we going? She fearfully questioned. Hush, little one. Her mother soothed from behind. There's no time to explain. We're almost there. Her father then gave her a sad smile, running his one free hand along her head of fiery orange hair, and the cat-like ears that topped it to offer comfort. Even in that moment of reassurance, his pace as he ran didn't lessen or show signs of fatigue in the slightest. Sure enough, they arrived at their destination shortly afterwards, a small clearing with trees the size of skyscrapers. The trees themselves, as well as the forest floor of the clearing, were carved with ancient and mystical runes, vital for what was about to take place. Setting their daughter down in the center of the clearing, her cat tail brushing against his arm in the process, her father gently kissed her forehead, and his wife took her place next to them.
All right, would anyone have raised their hand?
I did not see anyone raise their hand.
Okay. Just looking at the time too, I think this will be the last one we can read, but we can at least bring in the titles of the last 3 that we have on here. And if people want to run through their love note and help note real quick, just on the titles, you just won't be able to read them. So, all right. Natalie, you want to go first on this one?
So this one, I love the slow reveal of these humanoid cats and everything. I was thinking of like the old show Thundercats, to show my age, and stuff, but kind of like cats on two legs and stuff, but they have wrists and elbows and stuff and can fingers, in the sense of all covered in fur. However, we went from dilated eyes to slit eyes real quick, and I think, and that was like my jarring moment. And I think of other things that cats do. Their ears twitch, their heads snapped at the sound that they're looking at and stuff. You did great with dilated eyes and then slit eyes and stuff. But then also self-soothing, like by purring and such, is something that cats do. So think of other ways that you could have disclosed they were cats before you actually said, oh, by the way, it's a cat. But I still love this premise. And especially you created the relationship of the family. I was very attached to that.
All right, Lori.
To me, the pacing of the actual action felt more like they were creeping through the woods. A lot of things that happened couldn't happen if you were actually running with a child. If you do want them running, you need to borrow a kid and run as fast as you can through the woods. You're not going to notice a whole lot. And so I would consider maybe altering it to creeping or something, a different pace that would match what you're actually doing. And I think the glimpse of the non-human nature of the child's eyes is interesting and cool. It needs to match. If they're running, the actions need to match that. If they're creeping through the woods and trying to get away that way, that's cool too. Oh, and my love note. Oh, I already told you. The eyes.
All right, DL.
My help note is maybe a different POV to see how the opening would flow. That's not a requirement, just the only help note I can think of, because I think the opening is quite exciting. And my love note was I love the intrigue and the build, the mystery. I definitely want to see what happens with the being a cat girl, and I definitely agree with my other panels here, because you can tell these things about being a cat in different ways, like Natalie's bringing up. The senses, it's easiest to forget those senses.
All right, so Danica would have said I'd stop reading here, and that was on the last sentence. The story started really well, and I was excited to see it start in the middle of action. Help note, this last line makes me wonder why the rush in the first part. So, all right. So just real quick, you guys, because I want to be able to let you guys share what work you've done. Number 13 was Secrets of Walden. So your one help note, love note. We won't be able to read it on air. Sorry, guys, but at least for the author, they'll get it.
Love note for that one. I love that they use real people. I would suggest a small suggestion: use tilde, asterisk, whatever, to show a division between the Martha had drowned in first two paragraphs before you start talking about Ralph Waldo Emerson and everything, because it made me. I almost thought they were two, like, in the same location, not two different time periods in a way.
Okay. All right. Lori.
Give my love first. Martha Hunt drowned is a direct and surprising first line. And my help is, it seems to be the story of Martha and maybe the Kelpies. And I would keep your focus on that. I would use maybe the first names or nicknames for the famous people, and only very slowly let that bleed in. I think their names take over and throw the reader out of the story that's about Martha and the Kelpies.
All right, DL.
Yes, I would have to agree on that. My help note actually is possibly try and use a natural way to introduce characters through character interactions. That, of course, that depends on what your POV is, which could be POV third person limited if you're writing in that. But that way you can get the characters to introduce the characters by calling their name or something that they're talking to them about. And then love note would be Martha Hunt drowning at the start was a good opening to pull the reader in and help you pull into the plot. So good job on that.
Danica said she would stop reading on the last line. Love the opening line. That was the love note. Help note. Not sure about the Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau bit, and it jars me. Guys, I'm looking at the time. I don't think we have time. We need to give people time to get to the next one. How would you guys feel about if you want to email me what you've written? I've got Danica's, and we can put them up on our social media.
Yeah, sure.
That sounds good. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this off the screen, and you guys can do. I don't know who we're supposed to be talking next, but whose line is it?
Somebody's. I'll just go, I guess.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I'm Author D.L. Tillery, the Mistress of Horror. You can find me on YouTube and any of the social medias under Author D.L. Tillery. I write dark fantasy, romance, and horror, and I recently released Kali Astral Tale, The Light Verted, my dark fantasy novel, which is a 3-part series. And as I must say before I leave, stay scared.
I was going to say it with you. All right, Lori.
You can find me on Substack under Lori Tennant, and I can keep you in touch with the things I'm doing. Or if you'd like to explore my style of writing, I write paranormal romance and late in life travel romance, and occasionally kinky cozies.
Natalie Locke, writer Locke on most social media. Words. Listen, it's my speaking voice is a first draft at all times. Okay. I will be actually doing a workshop tomorrow and co-presenting with Chandra Arthur, my co-author. So you can see us tomorrow.
Awesome. And then you can find all the links for all of our panel members down in the description box down below. We just want to thank each of you for being involved with this. I absolutely loved hearing your feedback and your opinions. Yes. Very, very cool.
And I have to say thank you, of course, to DL and to Lori, because we had panel members and people kept falling out and things happened. And we're so glad you guys came on kind of later in the season. So
of course.
And I'm Shannon. I write under the pen name of SC Huston. I think I'm supposed to go after. Sorry, Devon, you were supposed to go first.
Hi, my name is Devon. You know where to find me on YouTube or Instagram, and we'll see you in the next session.
Awesome. And I am Kauffman. I will be presenting in about an hour, actually. Why 97% of writers fail. So come join me for that exciting workshop as we explore that. Thank you guys for joining us. And Shannon, see you.
All right. And so one more thank you to our sponsors, to WTC Creatives, our supporting sponsors, and to Later Press, our banner sponsor. And of course, don't forget that with WTC Creatives, you can get 20% off any website design or management services if you get a call going this or you fill out the form during this weekend, and then is valid within 6 months. And of course, thank you to all of our panel members, and that will do it. Thank you, everyone. Bye.